right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for giving up a little bit of your afternoon today to chat with us about our MHSEL Prep esports program. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to start the presentation just talking about how to start an esports club at middle level. My colleague, Joe Navarro, is on as well. We'll do introductions shortly, and he's going to take over the second part and talk to you a little bit about onboarding on our platform. So for those of you I have not met, my name is Nina Davis. I am the director of MHSEL Prep as well as associate director at MASSP. I am over all things middle level at MASSP. So if we haven't met, we should meet if you're at middle school, because I want to be a resource to you, not just for esports, but other things middle level related in the association area. So definitely we need to connect. If I have not met with you, my email address will be in the presentation. Make sure you take it down because again, I can definitely be a resource to you in some different areas. So we have Joe Navarro on as well, my colleague, my partner in crime. He is the operations manager at Playfly Esports, and you will be hearing from Joe throughout the presentation, but as well as after I finish the one-on-one, he'll talk to you a little bit about the onboarding and the platform itself. So I'm going to talk to you first about our spring esports program that we piloted. I am happy to see that it looks like we have two of our coaches that were with us in the past. So maybe they can chime in at times if there are any questions that they can answer, having gone through an esports program with us in the past. So we did start with 14 middle schools in the spring session. We had schools from Upper and Lower Peninsula. I like to mention that geographically, we had students represented from North, South, East, and West. We had urban, suburban, and rural schools, Title I and non-Title I. And I mention all of that to say that any type of schools can have an esports program. A lot of times we look at, our maybe a high performing or a high socioeconomic area school, but we had schools of every type participating in esports. And I think that's what this is all about, giving all of our students in Michigan an opportunity to compete in a program like this. So our program that we did in the spring was a 9-week program. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're expanding now with Playfly as our partner. And some of the strategies we're going to go through today just to talk about our esports program is, number one, why middle level esports. I'm going to kind of rush through that section, but give you some basic data on why you should explore middle level esports. We're going to talk about startup considerations, just some basic things that you'll need to get started if you don't already have those things. We're going to talk about recruitment, tips for recruiting advisors, if we have any administrators on, students, and even getting parents on board. We're going to talk about some of the resources that we offer. Specifically, we like to mention, our program being plug and play. You don't have to know a whole lot about esports. Here it is. I'm the director of this, and I can tell you guys, I am not a gamer, but I have learned gaming. I've been around the world of gaming, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience in that. We're going to talk about the games, the actual games that we have in our platform, and the part that the students come for, and then we're going to talk about the future, just where we hope our program will go over the next few years. So first, why middle level esports? So in our program, we found, and just from the data we collected, and there's much more, so I anticipate this number is much higher than we actually found, but 60% of our students involved in our spring middle level esports had not participated in any other sports or activities. So meaning they weren't on a sports team, they weren't your student council kids, they weren't your junior honor society kids. These are our kids that often get lost in the cracks. Our kids that we try hard to connect with, but we really haven't found that thing to connect them to school with. And we are finding that esports is that thing. So we all know about video games. We know that they're recreational, they're for personal enjoyment, and they're very individual focused. Esports takes those video games to the next level by making them competitive, structured, and team-based. So that those are the skills that we want students to learn. We want them to benefit from and become lifelong citizens. So that's why we love this program, and we think that esports, again, is the key to connect to some of those students that we haven't been able to connect with. So I'd like to use this slide just to show you, that esports gaming in general is a global market, $1 billion industry for those that aren't aware. And I love this with this particular slide. A lot of people don't realize that mobile gaming is, one of the highest revenue generating game industry out there. So we anticipate this number is going to continue to soar. So again, why not get our students involved early on so that they can also be a part of this global gaming market? As well as scholarships. There's so many opportunities for scholarships that exist for students that didn't exist even 3 to 5 years ago. Careers that are out there now that previously did not exist. And this is where I like to kind of throw in one of my personal examples. I have a daughter who was a gamer all her life. That's the thing that she loved to do. And as her parents, we wanted her to do something else because you can't play video games all your life. My daughter is graduating this December from Kendall College with a degree in video game design, where she received a full scholarship. So again, she was able to benefit from this passion, this thing that she loves to do, and will be pursuing a career that probably didn't exist a couple years ago, and receive scholarships for that degree. So other benefits to gaming, it's more inclusive than traditional sports. It's non-gender specific. So you have females and males playing on the same teams. It's all ability levels are welcome. You don't necessarily, with basketball, you got to be athletic and be able to run out there. It's not the same with esports, and all students can come together and compete on the same platforms. We also love that esports is inclusive of other roles. So besides playing, you could have students as managers, broadcaster, comms, design. There's so many aspects of esports to get many students involved. So let's talk a little bit about startup considerations. First thing that we ask you to do if you are interested in starting an esports club at your school is to go through a technology audit. And this first step is very crucial to determine your technology needs. So one of the things that we ask you to do is to work with your IT department to configure your network for internet and gaming purposes, because you don't want to get started and then realize that your network is not configured to support the type of gaming that we would do. So that would be the first thing that you'd want to do. And in order to do that, you'd want to talk to some people at your building level in IT as well as the district level. And we have all of the materials that you would need at the QR code here in this PowerPoint. I will be sending this out, so no need to take notes or record anything down. We'll make sure that this is emailed out to everyone on the call. But you'll want to take that QR code and you'll want to get that to an IT person just to determine that you're up to speed with everything that you need. In terms of hardware and software, PCs or Macs are going to be most advisable. We do advise against Chromebooks if you're going to use computers because of the difficulty in accessing different network capabilities. PlayStations, Xboxes, and then Nintendo Switches are specifically needed for certain games. So when I get to the games and talk to you a little bit about our Nintendo specific titles, you would need Nintendo Switches in order to play those games. One of our games can be played for free outside of the Nintendo Switch platform. So you could use, again, if you're just starting up and you only have computers at your school and you want to just get started, you could play that game on computers alone without having any other hardware. So it's not necessary, but students may wish to have additional items like headphones, microphones, and different gaming devices. But again, for those of you just getting started and just wanting to get, up and running, those type of things are not necessary just to get started in the esports world. Joe, do you want to add anything? Am I good thus far?
If I can click the unmute button. Yeah, I think you're pretty good so far. Yeah, I'll talk more when we get to the game titles themselves to cover it.
Perfect. All right. So in terms of recruitment, I am, pretty sure you're not going to need a whole lot of help recruiting students, because this is the thing that students want. They are like asking for esports, but we do provide promotional flyers for you to hang up, just to let students know that maybe you're having meetings to inquire who's interested in being on the team. We provide parental permission slip templates because it's very important to us that we have parents' involvement and parents on board, and they know specifically what we're doing. The program is compliant for the age group that you will be working with, middle school students. Joe's going to talk a little bit about about that later in terms of technology requirements and age and permissions and those type of things. But the big thing that, we want you to know is that it's very plug and play. You don't need a lot of skills. You just need to love kids, in order to be an advisor and work with students with our esports program. So resources, the things that we offer, technology, we will talk you through technology requirements, common troubleshooting and conversations that you may need to have with your IT departments. We will walk you through the game title descriptions, lobby setup guides, and frequently used terms and acronyms, which you guys will learn that I am still learning myself, but I think, Joe, I got it now, the difference between Twitch and Discord. So I'm there. I'm getting to the world of esports. I'm learning, and you will also get caught up to speed with us on the journey of esports. In terms of competition, we're going to talk you through common competitive formats. We're going to explain those, the different platform guides, and more. So we're going to talk a little bit about the games themselves. So I talked to you earlier about that free game, and that game is going to be Rocket League. That game is free. It is available on all platforms. It's a high-powered hybrid of arcade-style soccer and vehicular mayhem. We also have Super Smash Bros., which is a Nintendo trademark game, crossover fighting. It's available for play on Nintendo Switch. So that game is required. You would need to purchase that one. Mario Kart 8 also is a Nintendo platform game that you would need to purchase. Crossover racing game featuring Nintendo trademark character. And Splatoon 3 is our third Nintendo title that would also need to be purchased. So our program is available for the year. So in the past, we had 2 seasons. We had a fall and a spring. We still will have a preseason in the fall and a competitive season in the spring, but they are both being bundled for $1,000 for the entire year. So for an entire year of esports gaming, no matter how many titles you choose. So if you choose to only do Rocket League, you would pay that price no matter how many students are playing in your school. If you decide you wanted to do all 4 games, you would pay the same price no matter how many students are involved. Joe, you want to jump in now?
Yes, the biggest question that I see whenever we get to the games is how many devices do I need to get? How many Nintendo Switches do I need for my program? And my recommendation is at most start with 4 Nintendo Switches, because that's gonna hit our highest participation title. That's Splatoon 3. That's a 4v4 title, 1 player per Switch. If that's a little bit too high for you, or your students aren't interested in Splatoon 3, 2 Switches will do just as fine, because that can have the 4 Mario Kart 8 racers, 2 per Switch, and then Super Smash Bros. Only needs 1 at a time. Rocket League being the only exception to that, you would need 3 Switches, or it's cross-platform, so maybe your IT department has a computer lab you can use, or maybe your students have Xboxes and PlayStations or their own Nintendo Switches to help with that. That's a 3v3 title, so you would need at least 3 platforms there. But usually, most schools I talk to will have Rocket League all covered with just how available it is for everywhere else. It's the real question of how many Nintendo Switches do I need for those other 3 titles. So I would say 2 to 4 is a good number for you to start with.
Absolutely. And we always get the question that comes up, how do we recommend purchasing those items? So I think that's going to depend first and foremost on your district in terms of who approved vendors are. So, that might be, you may have to go through a RIMC or other distributors. But I would suggest, if you are able to look at some used places. So, checking Facebook Marketplace, checking Disc Replay, and places that have used consoles. That might be a good way for you to start up. We also have schools that start up with just students bringing in their own devices. So students bringing in switches and utilizing those until you're able to, purchase some within your school. So there's various ways that you can get started doing this for fairly cheap. We are working on a cost structure just so that you can see the basic, lowest level of way of starting a program, with students bringing theirs in, basic, all the way up to, if you were to purchase brand new devices, just so that you can kind of see the breakdown there. But we do want to let you know that there's so many options and ways to do this. We have to get a little creative sometimes, when starting a new club or a new program at a school, but we want to definitely help you through that if that is a barrier. So I'm going to defer to Joe here to let him talk about the fall schedule a little bit.
Yes, so fall schedule we have designated as kind of our exhibition season. The idea being schools come and they kind of play kind of a practice series before the main competition in the spring. So this is going to be a 7-week automatcher series. And automatcher just means that you can queue in whatever week you're available. If you're only available weeks 1 through 4 and you have testing weeks 5 through 6, you're not going to be penalized for that at all. There's not going to be any disqualification or extra fee or anything complicated like that. It's you hop onto our League Spot platform, you queue in your teams for that week if your teams are available, and then they get generated with a match. And that's really a wonderful structure that we like to use for this practice season because that allows us to eliminate forfeit matches. You're going to be playing more matches rather than be hearing from a team saying, hey, my students have exams this week, I can't play. So it's going to keep your students playing for longer. And we're going to keep our match times relatively simple. That's going to be 4 p.m. Eastern across the board for all match days, with only Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday being match days. We're avoiding Friday because of those pesky football games and other activities that tend to run on Friday nights. And we're also avoiding Mondays, to get around those Monday holidays and other complications. So Splatoon 3 will be on Tuesday, Super Smash Bros. On Wednesday, and then we'll have the Racing Thursday with Mario Kart 8 and Rocket League. And there at the bottom, registration is open until the last week of competition. I will encourage you to get in before the season starts on the 1st because after it starts, you'll have to come to us to get you put in it. It's nothing difficult. You just won't be able to see the option on your coach's side. So you have to reach out to our support email for that. But otherwise, registration remains open all season thanks to that auto matcher format. So you can hop in at any time.
And I see Zach comment that he's excited. Zach, I am excited also because we struggled a little bit with our matches and, some different things that arise. So the auto match feature, we're super excited. And we think that this is going to be a move in the right direction for us. So just to talk a little bit about spring, because we don't have it in here, but I want you to be aware that spring will be somewhat similar in terms of auto match, but at the end we will have a championship, and we are pushing for an in-person championship. So I just wanted you to be aware that our goal, we're working with our venue right now, just to make sure that they have the capacity for high school and middle school, because our high school is already scheduled. So we are hoping to have our championship simultaneously with our high school championship in the spring. All right, so the goal here is to connect with every student. That is our goal with esports. That is our goal with everything that we do in schools. So, we're super excited to provide this opportunity to connect with those students that we haven't been able to traditionally connect with. We see it. We see the success at our high school. We see the excitement in our students. I went to our, not this year, but last year, our in-person high school championship, and to see the excitement in these students' faces that had never, I talked with one student who said they had never been recognized before in their school, and here they were winning an esports championship and receiving a trophy, and the school had purchased jerseys for the team, and just the excitement of feeling connected to something in their school. And that is kind of what we're hoping to bring to our middle school, even earlier on, so that our students can continue to excel as they get to high school and beyond. So our future, we just hope to continue build out scrimmaging across schools for the 23-24 school year and beyond. Again, I mentioned we piloted a program in the spring, and we want to continue building on that. So our students have more students to compete against, to scrimmage with, and students can connect with other students all over the state of Michigan. That is our goal. At some point, Joe, maybe not in this call, but at some point you can connect with Joe, and Joe can talk to you about his company, Playfly. They have collegiate leagues all over the US. And that's kind of what we're hoping, we're going to expose our students early on to middle school, they go on to high school, and our hope is that many of these students will go on to compete at college level and college level esports teams and to continue to excel in something that they love. No matter the results, when students compete, we know that school culture wins, and that is why we're so excited about this program. I have both our email addresses on the slide. I will also pop mine in the chat because I'm going to hand it over to Joe to get started on our next presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing here.
Thank you, Nina.
Throw my email in there. Joe, I'll type yours too.
Much appreciated. Let's see, let's make sure I get the right screen here. Everyone seeing that okay?
Looks good.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause here before we get rolling. Were there any questions on that first half of the presentation? Because this is gonna get us into more of the platform and the setup aspect of it. But is there any questions about the format, the games that we're playing, anything like that before we move on? All right, not seeing any questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rolling. If I see them pop up in chat, me and Nina will get to them as soon as we can. But this is our season onboarding presentation for our competition platform, LeagueSpot. We use this platform for Naystar League, our collegiate esports community, which has over 18,000 students competing as of last year from over 750 institutions. So it's stress tested and college approved. So we're hoping to use it for our middle school level competitions as well. So a little bit of vocabulary to start off with. Don't worry, there's not going to be a pop quiz at the end. This is just important for y'all to know, because if you're ever talking to me or anyone else on my admin team, these are going to be terms you're going to see thrown around whenever we're troubleshooting with you. So most importantly is going to be our school manager role. This is going to be someone with school-wide permissions on the LeagueSpot platform. This is someone who can edit the school page, update it with new branding or a new name if that ever changes, edit all the team pages underneath it, manage and invite students and new managers, and you can have as many managers as you want. Speaking of that stress testing from earlier, I think our record is 13 managers from, I want to say, one of the UT schools. So you can really have as many coaches and faculty as you want. You can even put your administrator on there if they really want to get down here and start looking at it as well. Next is going to be the coach role. This is going to be a user who's assigned as a non-player manager on a per roster basis. So maybe you have a couple parents, people who aren't faculty who are interested in coaching your teams, and you want to let them help with the community, help with the club, but you don't want to give them full access to that school page. You invite them in as a player, you promote them to a captain onto the team page, and they'll only have access to work with those team pages themselves. They can edit those rosters, check in those teams, communicate in match chats for those rosters, and submit scores. You can have up to 2 coaches assigned per team, and they're going to be shown near the top of the team's page with a clipboard as their icon. And then finally, this is a very important one because it's integral to LeagueSpot, is going to be the captain, a student who is assigned as a player leader on a per roster basis. This is a required role. LeagueSpot does not build rosters without captains. So the first player you put on a roster is going to be automatically assigned as a captain. Please make sure it's a responsible individual. This should be a proactive conversation with your students. If nothing else, it can just be a, hey, you might have these permissions. Don't mess with it. Don't break anything. That's just how the platform works. Let us play the games. Don't get in your own way. Don't become an obstacle. But they'll have the same permissions as a coach. They can edit rosters, check in teams, and submit scores. They will not be able to talk in match chat because they are our player role. We're going to keep that locked to managers and coaches only, so that faculty, or if your community is comfortable with it, parents or other non-faculty coaches will communicate on behalf of the team. That's more in line with the COPPA requirements. And then finally, the last term is just going to be a player, member, user. This is just someone who's registered on LeagueSpot. They could be on a team, they could be off of the team, they could be on the school page, just anywhere on LeagueSpot. This is going to be someone who exists with an account. So with all that being said, how do you become a school manager? You're going to reach out to a league official via Discord or email us at that support email up on the screen. We'll also have it, I'll also drop it in the chat, so it's a lot easier to access for y'all. And you'll make sure to provide your first and last name, your preferred email address, your school, and then your faculty and club role for our records. Once we get that, we'll respond back within 24 hours and send you the LeagueSpot account invite. You'll click get started on that blue button in the email and you'll begin account creation there. Once you complete that account, you don't need to check in with us for anything else as far as immediate setup goes. If you want to reach out to that support email for troubleshooting, or if you have questions about the platform or it's not making sense to you, feel free to ask. But once you have that first account set up, you're completely set up to create all the teams you want, invite all the students you want, invite more managers and other faculty. You're all set up to run the school yourself. That leads us into student registration. Student registration can occur in one of two ways. You can collect student emails and send out invites similar to the faculty. Instead, you'll be the one sending it out from the school page via the invite players button. Or alternatively, under that same invite players option, you're going to see the option to generate a join link. This is something you could put as maybe a QR code on a poster or on a little table tent on your desk in the classroom, or maybe just up on the school website somewhere where students can just click on it. Anyone who clicks on that link will be able to set up for it. I will note for student registration, for any students that are underneath the age of 13, their parents are going to need to be the ones to register for them in order to be compliant with COPPA. We have our league guidebook that goes into full details on how that occurs, in addition to other steps discussed here. I'll share that in the chat in a minute as well. And then we get to team pages. Once you have your students invited, you'll see the option to add a team on the school page. Once you click on that add team button, you're going to assign a team name, a game title, and assign yourself as either the captain or the coach. For your purposes, you're going to put yourself as that coach roster because that is that non-playing capacity. You're not a player, you're just the manager. And then once you do that, you'll have the team appear like this with open positions equal to the minimum amount of players required for that roster. So for Rocket League, it needs a minimum of 3 players to compete. For Splatoon 3 and Mario Kart, that's going to be 4 players. And for Super Smash Bros., that's also going to be 3 players. While you see those open positions, you can fill them, and then you can fill up to twice those open positions. It's a slight confusion we get every year on LeagueSpot. You can have twice the minimum players required. So if it's a 3-person minimum, you can have 6 players. If it's a 4-person minimum, you can have 8 players. So you can easily add them using the add user button, either on this little team listing on the school page or on the team page itself that we'll see on the next slide. So this is an example of the team page, and this is getting us rolling on season registration. Now, once you fill all of those open positions, once you meet that minimum player required, you can then join the season. This is going to be open until the beginning of the week of October 1st, where coaches can register themselves. Otherwise, you would need to reach out to that support email if it's during the fall season for our admins to add you. Like I said earlier, it's a very easy process. It's just since matches are rolling, then the website turns it off on the coach's side just to make sure nothing breaks from an ill-timed submission. So when you do reach that minimum, you will click the blue join season button on the team page and select the competition you want to join. So you can select our fall season, or if you're a school who's still getting set up but they want to register ahead of time for the spring, you can go ahead and click into that spring season. Once you've joined a competition, you'll see that on your team page, it'll update the current status to list the season name. So you'll easily see that you're in Fall 23 Rocket League or in Spring 23 Super Smash Bros. Or whatever competition you've registered for. Next is game connections. This is the other proactive conversation that you're going to need to have with your students, in that all games require a game connection in order for you to check in players. This is to ensure that players can easily share information and get custom lobbies set up even easier than needing to make a list and match chat. So the only exception to this is going to be Super Smash Bros, because it's a lot easier to run off of one switch instead of the 3 for each player. Having one arena is just a lot easier for programs to use in practice. So we do recommend that the captain of each roster still list that Switch friend code on their roster for the one switch that's going to be used, but otherwise no one else needs to add it. But for Rocket League, for Mario Kart, for Splatoon 3, you're going to need to have your players add their game connections. In order to do that, they will navigate to their profile via the menu in the top right under the name. Around the middle of the page, you'll see this game handles option with a 9x9 area and more options in the bottom left. you're going to be interested in the Epic Games ID for Rocket League, and then under the new handle is going to be the Nintendo friend code for all 3 of the other games. So once they add that, it will appear on their profile, and it'll make it real easy for them to be checked in during matches. And then finally, competition pages. This is just a quick overview of the rest of the pages we'll be using. All users are going to have access to a personal dashboard on LeagueSpot. This is going to show their upcoming matches for a season, their current teams, and other important information. There's also the option on the team page and on the school page to access a calendar subscription link. So connect it to your Outlook, connect it to your Google Calendar, connect it to any calendar that you have, and you'll easily have an event already logged for your Tuesday night Super Smash Bros. Games. Then on the match pages, captains, coaches, and school managers can do the following. They can check in teams, submit scores, submit a forfeit for their team if needed, reschedule matches. That's going to be for applicable competitions in the future once we get into round robin competitions, probably a few years down the road. And then communicate in match chat. Again, that is going to be limited to coaches and school managers to ensure that matches are proceeding responsibly and proactively and timely. And then again, circling around to game connections, anyone on the match page that has this little red arrow next to them is going to be someone who has not added their profile link. So if you're ever confused, you ever don't know how to check once matches are generated, you can easily see, oh, Kyle, you haven't put your switch code in for Mario Kart. I need you to do that real quick. And then they're all set to go. And that's all I have right now. Here's my email on the left, and then our Michigan Prep support email on the right. This is going to allow you to contact the rest of the admin team, especially if I'm ever out of office.
So that is the end of our formal presentation. What questions do you have? Don't see any questions coming up. Any of our former coaches have any questions? All good here. I see Zach. Okay. So just to reiterate, if you're ready to register, you're going to email that support email address, the esports MHSEL prep. There we go. You're going to go ahead and email that so that you can be added as the school manager, and you'll just make sure you send that necessary information. Again, I will send out the PowerPoints so that all this information will be included, but we just want to make sure that you are aware and understand the proper registration steps. Yeah, so this meeting we are just going to run 2 separate meetings, but it will be the exact same meeting. So no need to show up again. We will make sure that you get all the information sent out. Like I said, I will be sending a recording of the meeting as well as the slides so that you'll have everything that you need, if you need to speak with your administrator or whatever steps that you need to take next. But that is all we have for our information. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, reach out to Joe. We are super excited about this program. We're super excited about growing in the state of Michigan. And like I said before, getting this out to more students so that more students can interact, not only with one another, but within their school. And again, have that place where they feel connected in the school. All right. Well, if there are no questions, this concludes our meeting. Thank you so much for giving up this time to us this afternoon to learn about our esports program. And we so look forward to hopefully having you all in our program and, competing and seeing your students compete on our platform.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great evening.